in a very selective admissions process, they need to put a stake in the ground around what you bring into the classroom.
Right. If you want to, again, achieve these aspirational goals, you have to have a roadmap for how you're going to do it.
The school actually doesn't need to necessarily be able to get you there as long as you have a really, really well thought out plan that you've described.
Lots of people say private equity or they want to do VC. Why? Think about you're giving someone a photograph of yourself 10 years down the road. Is the photograph that you just created blurry? You want to bring it into as tight focus as you can.
Susan, so I know you have this all the time. You work with people in PE and VC. In particular, what are good post-MBA goals? What do you like to see and what do you like to hear?
You know, the words I always use are aspirational and achievable.
Yeah.
The school needs to know that it's achievable, in that the arc from past to present to future can make sense for you. And they need to know that you need them, right? A lot of people come into a consult and say, look, I really want to expand my network. I'd love to meet funders and co-funders, founders for my future long-term goal. And that is absolutely a benefit of going to business school.
Right.
No caveat there at all.
Right, and everyone knows that, including the admissions committee. They know you're coming there for that.
But they need to know why you need a seat in a classroom they've spent millions of dollars putting together. Right? And so you have to get clear. No one's going to hold you to these goals, right? You can change them 6 times after you get in, but you have to draw an arc that ends in that future, both short-term and long-term goal. And I would say part of it is that in a very selective admissions process, they need to put a stake in the ground around what you bring into the classroom.
Right.
They no more want the entire class to be made up of people who have PE experience in the past, then they want it to be made up of people who only want to go into PE in the future, right? Where every school is similar to me is that they're trying to put together as diverse a set of opinions and perspectives as they can and backgrounds to make that discussion rich. So that's why they're important to me.
Yeah, and Jeremy, obviously you see a lot of people talking about their post-MBA goals, and I think you certainly have some experience as far as things that are more realistic and things that are less realistic. How do you help your clients think about that?
One of the things that I often say to clients who say to me, are my goals plausible? I say, are they plausible to you? Do you think, do you believe, like I admit, I'm not an expert in every single, in the lineage of every single career, right? Do you believe that you could go from marketing at Nabisco to AI development at Google? That sounds like pretty far-fetched to me. I mean, that one I probably would give pushback on right away. But my point is that it's got to sound plausible to you. And if you're not sure, then talk to someone in that position and say, I'm looking at my LinkedIn and I found someone. I was in marketing at Nabisco, and I want to go into equity research covering consumer goods. Is that possible? Would someone say, I've got knowledge of consumer goods from Nabisco and that is applicable? Talk to someone in equity research and find out. And if it is, you're probably on the right track. I think where people go wrong is every couple of years, there is the soup du jour. And
I think that's right. It was sustainability, certainly.
And it was in 2000, in the early 2000s when I started this business. It was consumer internet goods, then by the mid 2000s and late 2000s, you had people who had no connection to finance because the financial world was going bananas before it fell off a cliff. They were saying, "Oh, I want to start doing impact investing, and I want to change the financial world," because they didn't have a direct connection to finance. Bottom line is, these things change. Right now, everyone, AI. Everyone's in AI. Are you really in AI? Is this really something that can be done? And we were talking this earlier, but the old admissions director at Harvard Business School kind of said to me ruefully one day, she had a very biting wit, and she said to me, sometimes I read these applications and it sounds like someone is saying, I want to be in a band. It's like, I want to be a rock star one day. And so it sounds naive because it's like, I'd like to do that. It'd be great if it happened. I'd like to be an entrepreneur. I'd like to start the next Google. Who wouldn't? That'd be great. Is that fundamentally do you have any evidence of this on your resume? Is there an ability for you with this resume and an MBA
why should I believe you? It's always like, why should I believe you?
And I think the other lens to put on that for people to think about is, what are the recruiting resources toward that end that a school offers?
Absolutely true.
Have they ever placed anybody in that job?
Exactly.
Can they actually help you get there?
Absolutely
and
true.
Let's say they have placed some people in that jobs. You understand what a business school class looks like.
Yep.
Are you going to be more likely to land that job than a variety of other people who might have more aligned backgrounds for that position? So I think that sometimes that helps people bring it down to reality a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to be one of our success stories, sign up for a free consultation with a member of our full-time MBA admissions team. Since we've worked with tens of thousands of applicants over the past 2 decades, we can give you our honest opinion on your chances and help you put together your very best application. That is not a sales call, but rather your first session with one of us for free. We can give you a profile evaluation, answer specific questions about the process, review your resume, talk about your school choices, and so much more. Sign up at mbaMission.com/consult. We look forward to working with you.
As well as the employment report. I tell frequently folks, listen, take a look at the employment report. Go on LinkedIn. You by all means, you have permission to stalk people on LinkedIn. And at that point, you start seeing, okay, what's realistic is this person got a job at Pfizer. He was in this role. At that point, he did this. So if you tell me you want to go into biotech, well, how do people who graduate that business school actually get to biotech?
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think your point about going to the career report is a good one, especially now where, right now, the job market on campus is tougher. And so, going to the career report, but also reading the news and knowing, say, for example, that consulting really is pulled back on hiring right now. So that's not to say that you can't say that you want to enter consulting, but you might want to equivocate a little bit. That doesn't mean show uncertainty, and it has to be related. You can't say, I want to go to consulting, or I want to go into consumer packaged goods.
Right.
That's not going to work. But I want to go into consulting at a major firm as an alternative. I would attempt to go into corporate strategy at a assuming you've got the background, of course. But there's something somewhat related, in those fields that will allow you to get there. You can't just sort of say I want to go to McKinsey.
Right.
That doesn't work anymore.
Right.
No.
Doesn't really work always, but it works even less now.
Right. No.
There's got to be some connection between skills and experience.
And I also always tell people that good goals, in my mind, what gives credibility to goals is something in the way you write it that says, this person has proven to me their interest and their depth in this subject.
Right.
They've looked at the space they want to go to.
I agree with
they've
you.
identified, opportunities, challenges, gaps that they're fired up to attack.
Yeah.
And they've conveyed that through the application in a way that makes it very real.
And it makes it very credible. I can't tell you the number of applications or people I talk to say, I want to go into private equity or I want to go into a hedge fund. And I remind them, private equity is very big. Hedge funds are very big. Are we talking about are we talking a quant fund? Are we talking a macro fund, a long short fund? And if you don't know what I'm saying, if you don't know what these words mean, then immediately we sort of have a problem. So instead,
Great point.
Instead, turn it around and say, actually, I want to go into a macro hedge fund because I study international relations. Issues around global issues that manifest themselves in business are really interesting to me. Wow, that sounds much more impressive. It's much more credible than just saying I want to go to a hedge fund where I want to go into a hedge fund, I want to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And even take that further. I want to go into firms like A, B, and C.
Right.
And I've spoken to someone there.
That's right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And having networked there, I was excited to hear that they're hiring international relations majors with MBAs these days, whatever. I'm theoretically.
Right.
But
That's right.
There's got to be some the more knowledge you can show that you can get the job. They're not just. It's not. What did you say before? You said aspirational and
Achievable.
Right? It's not just aspirational.
Yeah. Right.
It's achievable and achievable. Right. It's your job to lead a horse to lead a horse to water on that one.
Yeah. And I think it's get to the end of the process. People are in and they call and say, hey, what should I be thinking about? One of the first things I tell people, because I saw people do this poorly, is a lot of people get in and they're like, I'm done. It's going to be delivered to me on a platter. They're going to hand me the job.
Yeah.
I always tell people, you're not going to want to hear this, but you have to invest in the recruiting process as much as you hopefully just did in the application process. Yeah. It is not going to be delivered on a platter to you.
Yeah. Right. You get there on, do you know people, I've had some version of this, okay, I'm done with consulting. I don't want to be in consulting. I'm done with banking. I don't want to be in banking anymore. I'm going to go to campus. I'm doing this to career change. They get there.
And everything kicks off.
There we go.
Everything kicks off, and they haven't done any homework. Yep. And suddenly they get a job offer because they've been in consulting before with a consulting firm. And they're like, I don't know why I did this. I don't know why I'm back in consulting. I just got nervous that I wouldn't get another job. So it's like you have to be disciplined
100%.
and do all the homework beforehand and have somewhat like live leads going on. Like you have to, if you want to go from whatever, it doesn't matter. You want to go from consulting to private equity. That is achievable in certain cases. You should have your network alive before you get there.
Right.
You should have several private equity firms who know who you are. And you should be working on that independently of the school. You should have maybe there are one or two firms that are coming to campus. Maybe there are a whole world
25 that are not.
Exactly right. And that's what I tell people about private equity all the time. Private equity is actually, there's a huge number of private equity firms, and many of them are regional. And when I say huge, it's like Memphis, Tennessee has like 5 private equity firms.
Right.
And if you can make a great story with your goals being private equity, but you have to get down to that level of detail. You have to be really granular. I'm from Memphis. I know these folks. I've had conversations with them. If you want to, again, achieve these aspirational goals, you have to have a roadmap for how you're going to do it.
Great leaping off point for a broader point, which is the school actually, and wait a sec, hold your fire. The school actually doesn't need to necessarily be able to get you there as long as you have a really, really well thought out plan that you've described.
That's right.
So if you were to say, I'm the son of a manufacturer, and I want to join a small manufacturing company. They are not recruiting at at business schools, right? But I'm excited. I want to join an under $20 million manufacturer, and I'm coming to the school because your school has excellent operational resources, and whatever your actual reason is, I am prepared to do this hunt on my own, and I recognize that this is going to take diligence, and that I'm coming to this school with a reason because it's got manufacturing firms that in the region, whatever it might be. You're at least sending a message like, I know what I'm in for, and I know
that's right.
I'm already doing the legwork, and that's fine. Like you don't have to fall. I've over-indexed on manufacturing, and my point is you don't have to only be looking at consulting, banking, tech, marketing. Those are 65% of the jobs that people are going to get in every class. But if you have your own thoughtful niche, that's fine. Just express that you understand that it's a niche, and you're gonna drive your own process to get there.
Right. And use your goals to really amplify pieces of your story.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you want to go to private equity manufacturing, you can use that to sort of indicate the why. If you can then talk about your father being in manufacturing, if you can then talk about your desire to help sort of that piece of the country.
I had a guy who was at a major private equity firm. His family was in a manufacturing business. They did like installation of like huge infrastructure projects, like telephone poles and sewage and stuff like that. And he was at a private equity firm, and he got a secondment to the factory floor of one of their portfolio companies. He had an awesome story to tell about why he wanted to go into manufacturing, and he did. He did want to go, and it was really sincere and thoughtful. That job, there aren't a lot of manufacturing companies coming to campus, but in this case, it was just about creating that thoughtful connection.
I think the purpose piece of it is important too. Like lots of people say private equity or they want to do BC. Why? To your point, Harold, the why is important. What's the impact you want to leave? What's the gap you see that needs to be filled? Right. It's not just that you want to be an investor and probably line your own pockets nicely. Right. What is the goal for you at a higher level? Because I always say, and the goals play heavily in the interview process. We're kind of in interview season right now, so that's been a big topic of conversation. But you need to make them relatable. You need to level yourself so you're not too much in the minutia, so you provide enough context for somebody. I always say you are successful in your goals, and certainly as in how you convey them in an interview, if you co-opt someone into your story. If I leave an interview with you feeling like I am now his cheerleader, I want to do whatever I can from a distance tangentially to help make that happen because it makes sense to me. I understand it, and I'm cheering for him to succeed.
That's right. Not to mention the fact that if you have a story story that's really well thought out, that actually shows some grit, that you know what you're up for, well, just broadly, you're a really compelling person.
Yeah.
You know, your person doesn't sit back. Your person who's going to sort of, you know, grab the what's it called? Grab the brass ring. From that perspective, I want you in my class. I like that.
And like it values are wonderful and once you have great values, but you don't need to be saving the world in what you're doing at all times. You know, you can be like, what if you had exposure to? So we keep sort of reverting back to private equity, but like if you're at a private equity firm and you've had exposure to video games, that's one of the portfolio companies that you've worked with. It's like, okay, can you talk about and you've really enjoyed that. That's the deal you enjoyed the most. Can you talk about moving to a consumer electronics or a consumer focused technology firm?
Right.
If you've had exposure to healthcare, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to totally reinvent the healthcare system through private equity.
That's
and I think a lot of people try and make that leap.
I think that's true.
It can just be like, look, I found this to be gratifying. I've seen the impact of my work. I've seen the way this company is more efficient and has increased its research budget.
And this is what's interesting to me.
Yeah, this, exactly.
Right? It doesn't have to be the loftiest goal.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
And also,
exactly.
I know the skills I need to develop, and the best place for me to develop them is business school.
Yeah.
So from that perspective,
and it's got to be, you've got to say to yourself, like, could this withstand basic scrutiny? Not crazy scrutiny. No one's going to be saying to you like, defend it, Harold, defend it. But in an interview, can you say like, look, I want to go into a smaller private equity firm focused on consumer electronics.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you had that experience, you can defend it. Okay. Well, it's like which ones? Oh, why? Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Oh, you know that firm is doing this interesting thing. This great.
Right. Yeah. No, listen, I think that's right. And also, it does have to be an outgrowth of what you've done. I want to be an entrepreneur. Well, sometimes I'll look at resumes, and there's absolutely nothing entrepreneurial, nothing whatsoever. And it's like, you want to be an entrepreneur. It's the old sort of why. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
Like, do you know what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Like, do you know the stress, the heartache, whatever it is? Is there any evidence here? You know, just going to like, I don't know, a bunch of TED Talks or something like that.
Right.
You know, that's not background in entrepreneurship.
I think that's
really important.
Think about you're giving someone a photograph of yourself 10 years down the road. Is the photograph that you just created blurry, or you want to bring it into as tight focus as you can?
That's right.
I need somebody to walk away and be like, okay, I can see it. I can see where he's headed.
Right.
I don't know exactly how it's going to unfold or exactly what the impact is going to be, but I see it and I get it.
No, that's right. And I think you realize you have the opportunity to really connect the dots for somebody where the final dot is those goals. And you could even have a sort of a background that need not lead to that particular goal unless you really take your time to explain it. And what I mean by that, and just as an example, I had a client who was really into online gaming. And it was something that he did sort of part-time, but he was very successful at it. So he wanted to tell that story. At the same point then, he wasn't sure where he could take these skills. So he did the research, and that's when he began to recognize, wow, these are the same skills that I see in like equity analysis.
Right.
So at this point, then he's able to really do two things with his resume or his application. Is one, let me share with you something I find really interesting, far more interesting than my job, to be honest with you. It's sort of, and something I spend a lot of time on. It's online. At the same point, let me also tell you that the skills that I'm talking about here are applicable.
Right.
Yeah. It's they actually can use, and the way they're applicable is in my future career. It's always important to think about goals, not just goals in a very general sense, but short-term goals, medium-term goals, even long-term goals.
Right. I think you know, not to overstate it, but I think we've already talked a lot about connection, right? Yeah. And so in the same way that we said that you can't be in consumer goods and then say, I want to go work at a hedge fund, you can't say after business school, I want to, you know, go into banking and then I want to work for Nike. Like it just doesn't make sense. Yeah. Or maybe, I suppose if you were to say, I want to be a CFO at a consumer finance, then maybe there's some path, but for most people that path is not working. Right. Okay, so there's got to be some causal connection, and it doesn't mean it has to be linear. It doesn't have to be. Right. I'm in consulting. I want to be a partner in a consulting firm. But the job has to be possible.
There has to be some transferable skills.
Yeah, that's right.
Connecting point.
That's right.
Yeah, and with consulting, it's broad. It could be I want to join my family manufacturing firm. Yeah. You know, it could be that I want to go into corporate strategy. It could be there are lots of paths.
Right.
It just has to be possible and has to work and make sense for you.
That's right. And also, these paths are not impossible to figure out. And what I mean by that is look aspirationally at maybe the job you want to get. Let's say you want to be the CEO of Apple. That's great, by all means. So go take a look at not Steve Jobs. Go take a look at what Tim Cook did. Look at his career backwards. Right. Is that what you're laying out for yourself? Right. And the reality is, if you have a long-term goal, don't know what the short-term goal is, go look at what how they've gotten to where they are.
And to Susan's initial point, like, you shouldn't be embarrassed to be really, really ambitious. Like, I've had people say, I ultimately want to be president of my country, or I want to be the CEO of my firm, or whatever it might be. You shouldn't be. You might say, I want to join the C-suite. You might say, I want to enter the world of politics. I even aspire. Maybe there's a little bit of humility in the way that you're presenting it. Right. But there you can be like, in the long run. You can dream big, but it just shouldn't be naive. You can't say, yeah, I'm Jeremy, I'm going to business school, and I want to be the president of the Yankees. It's like, well, have I played baseball before? Have I been a manager of the baseball system? Have I been in marketing in the business? No, I've got no baseball background. I cannot, I'm willing to admit to you guys now, I cannot be president of the Yankees. I can't do it. Well, I don't even want to be. Not yet.
Yeah, there is no magic wand out there. Yeah. That's really the bottom line, is you have to sort of lay it out for business schools as far as how I'm going to get to this point. What are my goals are, and again, how do I achieve them?
We're talking about telegraphing. We need to your point about the picture. We're really, really being very, very clear that this all can come into focus.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, I'm left here thinking that the phrase achievable and aspirational is just fantastic as we think about long-term and short-term career goals. So thank you very much, Susan, for coming up with that phrase. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. And if you're lucky, you'll make it onto another one.
Do you want to learn more about your target business schools? Check out On Track by mbaMission, where we have in-depth modules on all the top business schools, covering everything from what makes them unique to how to tackle the application essays and short answers, and so much more. You can also practice for interview and video questions, all done on your schedule, on demand. We appreciate your dedication to our podcast, and we want to offer you 30% off any On-Track subscription. Use the code MBAMPOD to get 30% off any On-Track subscription. Check it out at ontrack.mbamission.com.